My name is Lillian. I'm 26 years old. For my whole adult life, my parents told anyone who'd listen that they funded my education and mentored me in business. They painted this beautiful picture of two loving, sacrificial parents guiding their child to success. And they took all the credit. So, at a family party to celebrate my company's latest milestone, an event where they were the proud guests of honor, I stood up. And with a shaking voice, I finally told everyone the truth. This wasn't just about setting the record straight. It was about reclaiming a decade of my life they had tried to erase. It was about taking back my own story. To understand why I do something so drastic, something that would shatter the image of our perfect family, we need to go back 10 years. Back to a time when my life was a universe away from the fiction my parents would later write. This story doesn't start with success. It starts with struggle, with sacrifice, and with the quiet, gnawing feeling of being completely alone, even when surrounded by family who saw my dreams as a childish fantasy. It starts with all the little moments that built up, year after year, until the pressure was just too much, and the truth had to come out. My journey started like it does for so many, with a dream of going to college. It wasn't anything crazy. I just wanted a business degree. I had this clear vision, not of a specific company yet, but of building something from the ground up. I loved logistics, marketing, the whole dance of creating a product and getting it to people. But when I told my parents, they weren't excited. They weren't even curious. It was just weary condescension. My dad, who'd worked the same stable 9 to 5 for 30 years, just sighed and said, "Business is a tough world. It's not for everyone. Why not get a teaching degree? It's safe." My mom just nodded along. "You've always been good with kids," she added. I know they weren't trying to be cruel. In their minds, they were just being practical. But all I heard was, "You're not capable. Aim lower." Then we talked about money. I'd naively assumed they had a college fund, or would at least be willing to help. The answer was a swift, definite no. "We have a mortgage on firm," my father said, like I was a stranger asking for a handout. "If you want to go to college, you'll have to figure it out yourself. A little hard work will be good for you." That line, "it will be good for you," became a theme. It was how they framed their lack of support as some character-building gift they were giving me. So, I figured it out. Figuring it out meant taking a gap year to work 2 full-time jobs. I was a barista in the morning and a stock clerk at night. I saved every single penny, living in a tiny room I rented from a friend's family. While my friends were going to parties and having the college experience, I was bleary-eyed, smelling of burnt coffee and cardboard, watching my bank account grow at an agonizingly slow pace. When I finally started university, it was more of the same. My life was a relentless cycle of lectures, studying, and work. I juggled 3 part-time jobs around my classes: library assistant, campus diner server, and transcribing audio files for a professor late into the night. My diet was basically instant noodles and the free crackers I could snag from the diner. I remember one winter, my coat had a huge tear in the sleeve and I couldn't afford a new one, so I just stuffed it with napkins to keep the wind out. It sounds dramatic, but that was just my reality. During all those years, my parents were ghosts. We'd have our Sunday phone call. "How's school?" my mom would ask. "Good. Busy," I'd say, too tired to explain the sheer weight of it all. I never told them how much I was struggling. I never told them about the time my car broke down, and I had to choose between fixing it and buying textbooks. I chose the textbooks and took 3 different buses to get to campus for a month. Asking them for help felt impossible. Their initial dismissal had built a wall between us, and my own pride wouldn't let me show them a single crack. They told me to figure it out, and I was determined to do just that, even if it broke me. They never came to visit, not once. The excuse was always that they were busy or the drive was too long. But the truth, I think, was that they just weren't interested. My world of ambition was alien to them. Their world was predictable and safe. My choices were a silent judgment on their own, and they just chose to ignore it. Graduation day was bittersweet. I graduated with honors and somehow debt-free, a feat that cost me my social life and nearly my health. My parents did come to the ceremony. They posed for photos, my mother clutching my diploma like she'd earned it. At the lunch afterward, my aunt asked how I'd managed to pay for it all. Before I could even open my mouth, my father chimed in with a proud, booming voice. We made sure she was taken care of. We believe in investing in our children's future. I froze, a piece of bread halfway to my mouth. I looked at him, then at my mother, who was just beaming and nodding. I thought it had to be a joke, a weird, tasteless joke. But they were serious, soaking in the impressed looks from my aunts and uncles. I didn't say anything. My throat felt tight. The familiar burn of resentment was now mixed with a shocking new feeling. Betrayal. It was just one sentence, but it was the first lie in a story they were just beginning to write. I told myself they were just proud, that the pride was getting tangled up with the facts. It was easier to believe that than the more painful truth. They were already starting to rewrite my history. After graduation, I got a job at a marketing firm. It was fine. It paid the bills. But the corporate world felt stifling. The dream of building my own thing hadn't died. It was just sleeping. I spent my nights and weekends sketching out a business plan for a subscription box for artisanal, ethically sourced coffee. It brought together my love for coffee, born in those early barista days, with the business sense I'd fought so hard for. I spent a year perfecting the plan, building a website from scratch with online tutorials, and using my meager savings to source the first batch of coffee. I was finally ready to launch. On the verge of the biggest risk of my life, I decided to give my parents one more chance. Maybe now, with a concrete plan and a tangible product, they'd finally get it. I drove to their house, laptop in hand, and sat them down at the kitchen table. I walked them through the market research, the financial projections, the branding. I was so nervous. My hands were trembling. When I finished, I looked at them, full of this foolish hope, long silence. My father leaned back, crossing his arms with that same look he'd had years ago. "So you want to quit your good, stable job to sell coffee in a box?" he said, dripping with disbelief. "How many of these things are already out there? 1,000? My mother, his echo, added, "It just sounds so risky, honey. Your job has benefits. A pension. Don't throw that away for a silly hobby." A hobby. All my work, my passion, a hobby. But then came the line that really broke me. My mother looked at me, her face a mask of fake concern, and said, "You get these grand ideas. You don't have to think you know everything." The words were meant to make me feel small, arrogant, and foolish. And for a second, it worked. The air just went out of the room. I felt like a little kid being scolded for drawing on the walls. I packed up my laptop without another word. The drive home was a blur of tears. Not sadness, but pure rage. That was it. That was the last time I would ever seek their approval. They had drawn their line in the sand. I was on my own, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, I was better off for it. I launched my company, Nomad's Brew, a week later from my tiny apartment, fueled by my own conviction and a burning desire to prove them wrong. The first 6 months were brutal. I was the CEO, marketing department, packing team, and customer service rep all in one. I lived and breathed Nomad's Brew, waking up at 5 a.m. for supplier emails and going to bed at 2 a.m. after packing boxes until my fingers were raw. About 3 months in, I almost failed. A huge shipment of beans got held up in customs, and I was on the verge of ruin. I spent 3 sleepless days on the phone, navigating a bureaucratic nightmare, and got the shipment released just hours before my deadline. I never told my parents. That victory was mine, and mine alone. Then, slowly, things started to turn. A popular coffee blogger wrote a glowing review. My subscribers doubled in a month. Then they doubled again. A year later, I had to move into a small warehouse. I hired my first employee, Clara. I remember signing her contract and feeling this wave of emotion so profound, it almost knocked me over. I wasn't just surviving, I was building something real. I decided to share the news with my parents, keeping my expectations low. I called my mom and told her I'd hired my first employee. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she said, her voice distant. Then she immediately changed the subject. "Did I tell you your cousin Sarah is getting engaged?" It was like I told her I bought a new lamp. My success didn't fit their worldview, so it was easier to just ignore it. But you can only ignore success for so long. 2 years in, Nomad's Brew was a thriving business. We had a team of 5 and got featured in a national magazine. The story was about female entrepreneurs and had a full-page photo of me. I was so proud. I sent a copy to my parents. This is when their story really started to change. This is when the gaslighting began. My mother called the day she got the magazine, not to congratulate me, but to critique the photo. "They made you look so tired, honey," she said. But then she added something that made my blood run cold. "I was just telling my friend Carol about the article. She asked how you got started, and I told her how your father and I gave you that initial push. You were always so hesitant, and we knew you needed some strong guidance." I was speechless. A push? Guidance? They'd called my dream a silly hobby. "What are you talking about, Mom?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Oh, you know," she said breezily. "We were always your biggest cheerleaders. We saw the potential in your little coffee idea from the very beginning. We just had to give you a bit of tough love to get you motivated." Tough love. They were reframing their mockery as a calculated parenting strategy. It was genius in its audacity. They weren't just forgetting the past. They were actively rewriting it. From then on, the lies escalated. At family gatherings, the story grew. The push became mentorship. My father, who wouldn't know a coffee bean from a cocoa bean, started telling people he helped me develop the business model. He'd say things like, I told her, "Focus on the subscription model. That's the recurring revenue." She was so focused on single sales at first. It was a complete fabrication. He barely understood what a subscription model was when I first explained it. Then the lies became financial. It started small. I overheard my mother telling an aunt, "Of course, we had to help her with a little seed money. You can't start a business with nothing." That lie was the worst. It completely erased the years I'd spent sacrificing and saving. It invalidated the nights of instant noodles and the winter with the torn coat. It took my greatest struggle and painted over it with their fictional generosity. The breaking point came when a local newspaper decided to do a feature on Nomad's Brew. The journalist, Susan, interviewed me for hours. I was honest. I told her about working my way through college and starting the company with my own meager savings. I was proud of that story. Susan also wanted a family perspective and asked to speak to my parents. I was hesitant, but I thought, surely they wouldn't lie to the press. I was so wrong. The article came out a week later on the front page of the business section. The headline, "Local Entrepreneur Brews Success with Family Support." I read the first few paragraphs and my heart sank. It quoted my father extensively. "We knew she had a brilliant mind for business," the quote read, "so we pushed her to be independent. We funded her education so she could focus on her studies. And when she came to us with the idea for Nomad's Brew, we knew it was a winner. We provided the initial mentorship and a significant portion of the seed capital. We just wanted to give her the runway she needed to fly." He hadn't just told a white lie. He had constructed an alternate reality and published it for the whole city to see. He erased me. He erased my 3 jobs, my hard-won debt-free graduation, the terror of launching a business with my last few dollars. He and my mother had hijacked my entire life story and cast themselves as the heroes. I felt profoundly invisible, like I was fading away. My success, which I had fought for with every fiber of my being, suddenly felt hollow. It wasn't mine anymore. The article made the rounds, and the phone calls poured in. "Your parents are so amazing," my uncle said. You're so lucky to have that kind of support. Every congratulatory message felt like a stab. They weren't congratulating me. They were congratulating a fictional character from my parents' story. The resentment I'd been swallowing for years began to boil over into a raging inferno. That's when I knew I couldn't live like this. The next time they tried to put on this play, I was going to burn the theater down. The chance came 6 months later. Nomad's Brew had just secured a massive deal with a chain of boutique hotels, a complete game changer. My aunt decided to throw a huge family party to celebrate. Of course, my parents were heavily involved in the planning, positioning themselves as the proud hosts. It was the perfect stage for their performance. In the weeks before the party, I felt a strange mix of dread and resolve. I knew what I had to do. I spent nights rehearsing the words in my head. I wasn't going to be hysterical. I was going to be factual. I gathered my evidence, old bank statements from college showing paychecks from 3 jobs, and the first financial statement for Nomad's Brew showing the initial investment came from my personal savings. I put it all in a folder, feeling like a lawyer preparing for the most important case of my life, the case for my own existence. The night of the party arrived. The hall was beautiful, filled with at least 70 people. When I walked in, my parents rushed to greet me with a suffocating hug. "There she is," my father boomed, "our successful entrepreneur." For the next hour, I watched them work the room. I could hear snippets of their story from across the room. "We always knew," my mother said. The business plan needed work, of course. But her father really helped her hammer out the details, my father boasted. Each word was a fresh cut. I saw the admiring looks they were getting. They were basking in the glory of a struggle they never witnessed and a victory they actively tried to prevent. The injustice of it all was a physical weight in my chest. Then came the toast. After a few lovely speeches, my father took the microphone. My stomach clenched. This was it. He cleared his throat, beaming. As a father, he began, "You dream of seeing your children succeed. But more than that, you dream of giving them the tools to do so. When my daughter came to us, first with her dream of college, and then with this incredible company, her mother and I knew we had a responsibility. To support her, to guide her, and yes," he chuckled, "to fund her. It wasn't easy. There were sacrifices. But seeing her here tonight, seeing what she's built on the foundation we helped provide, makes every single one worth it. We are so, so proud." The room erupted in applause. People were looking at my parents with tears in their eyes. They looked at me with a sort of respectful pity, like I was a project they had successfully completed. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The fear vanished, replaced by an ice-cold clarity. My aunt then gestured to me. "The woman of the hour, would you like to say a few words?" I walked to the front, my legs strangely steady. I took the microphone from my father. He was still smiling, completely oblivious. "Thank you, everyone," I began, my voice surprisingly clear. "And thank you, Aunt Carol, for putting this all together. It means the world." I paused. I've just heard my father talk about the foundation he and my mother provided for my success. And I feel like I need to clarify a few things about that. A few people shifted. I looked directly at my parents. Their smiles were frozen. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice dropping slightly, but losing none of its edge. "I have heard you tell these stories for years, and I've stayed silent out of respect, or maybe fear, but I can't do it anymore. Because your story, the one you just told, erases my story. And my story is the only one that's true." You could have heard a pin drop. "You said you funded my education," I continued, locking my gaze on them. "The truth is, I worked 3 jobs for 4 years to pay for every single credit and every meal. I graduated without a dollar of your help. My foundation wasn't your money. It was 80-hour work weeks and a diet of instant noodles." My mother's face had gone pale. My father's smile was replaced by a thunderous scowl. "You said you mentored me," I went on, my voice gaining strength. "The truth is, when I came to you, you told me my dream was a silly hobby. You told me I would fail. The only thing you mentored me in was how to handle rejection from the people who are supposed to believe in you most. And the most painful lie, I said, my voice catching for just a second, is the one about the seed money. The idea that you sacrificed to fund Nomad's brew. The truth is, this company was started with every last penny of my own savings. There was no runway. There was no safety net. There was just me, alone in my apartment, risking everything on an idea you both openly mocked. I looked around the silent room. My relatives were staring, mouths agape. I am proud of my success, I finished, but I will not stand here and let you take credit for a struggle you never shared and a victory you never supported. Your pride does not give you the right to rewrite my life. My success is not yours. It is mine. I set the microphone down. The silence was deafening. Then my father erupted. "How dare you?" he hissed, his face purple with rage. "How dare you embarrass us in front of our family?" "I'm not embarrassing you," I said calmly. "I'm just telling the truth. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do." The party ended, of course. The celebration curdled into a tense, awkward exit. My father was shouting, my mother was sobbing, calling me ungrateful and cruel. I didn't stay to fight. I'd said what I needed to say. I walked out into the cool night air and drove home. On the drive, I expected to feel guilt or anxiety, but what I felt, overwhelmingly, was peace. The weight I had been carrying for a decade, the weight of their lies and my own silence, was gone. I felt light. The fallout was immediate. My phone blew up. My parents demanded an apology for humiliating them. Some relatives sided with them, calling me disrespectful, saying I should have done it in private. They didn't get that the lies were for an audience, so the truth had to be told to that same audience. I didn't apologize. I replied to one of my mother's long texts with a simple message: "I love you, but I will not apologize for telling the truth. My accomplishments are my own. For our relationship to heal, you have to accept that. You can be proud of me, but you can't take credit for my hard work. That is my boundary." It was the first real boundary I had ever set. They didn't take it well. The calls and texts eventually slowed, then stopped. The silence was painful, but it was also clean. It was honest. In the months that followed, our family fractured. Some relatives quietly reached out to offer support. My cousin told me, "We all kind of knew. We just never knew how bad it was. I'm proud of you." Those moments were my anchor. Others remained firmly in my parents' camp, buying their story of the cruel daughter. I had to accept I couldn't control what they believed. My relationship with my parents is now distant. We exchange polite texts on birthdays and holidays. There have been no apologies. They're likely still telling their story to anyone who will listen, but it no longer has power over me. I've claimed my own story. This whole journey has taught me that your worth isn't determined by applause, especially from those who refuse to see you. It's forged in the quiet moments of struggle, in the lonely decision to keep going. My success isn't a monument to their guidance. It's a monument to my own resilience. It's built on a foundation of late nights, personal risk, and unwavering belief in myself when no one else had it. And for the first time, I'm able to enjoy the view from the top, knowing that I climbed this mountain all on my own. My story is about more than just family drama. It's about the deep-seated need for your hard work to be seen and respected. I know I'm not alone in this. So many of us have had our struggles minimized or our successes claimed by someone else, whether it's in a family, a job, or a friendship. It's incredibly painful. So I want to open up the conversation. Share your own story in the comments. Have you ever felt like someone was taking credit for your achievements? How did you handle it? Let's use this space to validate each other's journeys and celebrate the hard work that so often goes unseen. Your story deserves to be told.